Excusing herself, Sienna walked out of the room and into the hallway, needing air. Needing space. Moments later, Evan followed. "You should have said no," she snapped before he could speak.
I just found out tonight.
He replied, hands raised in surrender. "Then why aren't you objecting to this madness?"
I didn't say I agreed to it.
"But you're not fighting it either." Evan stepped closer.
Look, I'm not thrilled about being traded like a stock option either, but maybe it wouldn't be the worst thing.
She stared at him like he'd grown two heads. "You want to marry me?" His jaw flexed.
I'm saying I wouldn't mind marrying you.
Sienna scoffed. "You've officially lost your mind." Heart's Audio Library presents The Bride Who Wanted to Matter, a novel by Honey Hearts. But before I start the story, kindly hit the subscribe button and also hit like if you like the story. Thank you.
Part 1. Sienna Matthews used to be her mother's baby girl. The kind she'd twirl around in the kitchen while baking cookies, who'd fall asleep to lullabies and forehead kisses every night. Their bond had once been warm, golden, safe. But all of that ended the day her older brother, Blake, died. She was only 10, a fifth grader who still believed in fairy tales and magic. That afternoon she'd been picked up from school by Blake, her favorite person in the world. He was 17, charming, practically a superhero in her eyes. He'd just finished class at the university and drove straight to her campus, flashing that easy, big brother grin when she came running to the car. They should have gone straight home, but she'd spotted a vendor on the corner, selling cheap Barbie dolls, and begged Blake to stop. "Just 5 minutes," she pleaded. "Please, please, please." And Blake, like always, gave in. He pulled over, told her to wait inside, and stepped out to take a closer look at the dolls lined up on a plastic mat. That's when it happened. A man approached. Quiet, fast, angry. Sienna couldn't hear what was said, but she saw the struggle, saw the way Blake held his wallet out, then yanked it back. She watched him push the man away. And then she saw the flash of a blade. He was on the ground before she could scream. Blood stained his shirt. His hands shook as he tried to crawl back toward the car. Sienna froze, paralyzed behind the windshield, doll clutched to her chest, heart pounding so loud it drowned out everything else. He was declared dead on arrival at the hospital. 17 years old. Gone. She didn't remember much after that except her mother's silence. Not anger, not blame, just cold. Lillian Matthews didn't yell. She didn't scream. But she stopped hugging her, stopped tucking her in at night, stopped calling her baby girl. And that hurt worse than any slap could have. From then on, the house changed. It grew quiet and sharp. Her older sister Avery flourished, becoming everything their mother could be proud of. Smart, polished, driven. While Sienna, desperate and guilt-ridden, slowly began to disappear behind her need to prove she wasn't the one who should have died that day. By 7th grade, Sienna had a plan. Become the best. Best in her class, best in her grade, best daughter. If she couldn't undo the past, maybe she could earn forgiveness. So she worked. Hard. Every quiz, every speech, every recitation. She wanted top marks, glowing praise. A reason for her mother to look at her the way she once did. She even pinned Avery's old valedictorian medal to the corkboard above her desk and swore she'd get one of her own. For 2 years it worked. She dominated her class rankings. Teachers adored her. She was finally stepping out of Avery's shadow until freshman year of high school. That's when he arrived. It was a Tuesday morning. She remembered because it was the day their English teacher announced a pop quiz, and she'd studied her butt off the night before. The classroom door creaked open, and in walked a boy with tousled dark hair, messy uniform, and a crooked smirk that irritated her instantly. "I'm Evan Caldwell." he said to the teacher. Transfer student. Sienna glanced at him once, then looked away. He didn't seem like competition. His posture screamed carefree. He didn't even carry a notebook. She expected him to be gone by 1:45. Instead, he started answering in class, confidently, casually, with the kind of effortless ease that made Sienna's blood itch. He wasn't loud or arrogant, but there was a quiet sharpness in him that made people listen. Even the teachers started calling on him more often. One even laughed at his joke during a lecture. Worse, he was smart. Not just regular smart, her kind of smart. By second quarter, he'd landed on the top 10. Still, she told herself he's not a threat. She was top 1, and she'd fought tooth and nail to stay there. Some cocky transfer kid wasn't about to take that from her. Until he did. Third quarter rankings were posted on a cold Friday morning. Sienna stood in front of the bulletin board, jaw tight, heart hammering as her eyes landed on the name printed in bold letters above hers. Rank 1, Evan Caldwell. Rank 2, Sienna Matthews. The rest of the day passed in a blur. She barely remembered confronting her teachers, demanding answers, holding back tears while asking what she did wrong. He aced all his quizzes, one of them said kindly, and his research paper was exceptional. It wasn't fair. She had worked harder. She had sacrificed. He was just showing off. From that moment on, Evan wasn't just a classmate. He was a rival, an obstacle, a walking reminder that no matter how hard she tried, someone could still take it all away. She avoided him as much as possible, shooting him icy glances in the hallway, pretending he didn't exist. He, in turn, smiled at her like he knew exactly what she was thinking, like he enjoyed getting under her skin. And honestly, he did. One afternoon after class, while she was alone at her locker, Evan approached her. "You always walk that fast, or are you just avoiding me?" She didn't look at him. "Do you want something?" "Nope." He leaned against the locker beside hers. Just wondering what it feels like to finally meet someone who cares about school more than breathing. "Cute," she muttered. "I mean it," he said, tone softening. "You're intense, kind of inspiring." She blinked, not expecting that. Then she turned, eyes narrowed. "I'm not here to inspire anyone." "Fair enough," he said, pushing off the locker with a casual shrug. "But I think we're going to have a lot of fun. Matthews?" She didn't respond. Didn't have to. Her silence said it all. "Over my dead body, Caldwell." Part 2. Since then, Evan Caldwell became more than a classmate. He was a nemesis. A constant reminder that no matter how hard she worked, someone could come in with a lazy grin and a charming shrug and still take everything she'd bled for. By senior high, Sienna had vowed it wouldn't happen again. So when they ended up in the same strand, same section, same subjects, she took it as war. Evan, on the other hand, seemed to think it was a game. "Look who's still glaring at me," he teased one morning after they both aced a math quiz and were the only two left standing in a tiebreaker round. "I'm not glaring," she said flatly, not looking up from her notebook. "You're practically setting me on fire with your eyes," he added with a low chuckle. "If only that worked," she muttered under her breath. But no matter how much she tried to ignore him, he kept getting closer, showing up early in class, asking pointed questions in group work, sometimes even stealing her seat on purpose just to watch her scowl. And worst of all, he was smart, annoyingly so. Not the kind of smart that came from desperate all-nighters, but the kind that lived in his bones. He understood things quickly, debated effortlessly, and could charm teachers into extra credit with a single lopsided smile. Sienna hated that smile because she noticed it too much. And maybe, if she were being honest with herself, something she rarely did, there were nights she replayed some of their conversations in her head. Nights when she wondered what it would be like if they weren't always trying to beat each other. If, maybe, he didn't just see her as competition. But those thoughts were always followed by a jolt of guilt. This wasn't about him. This was about her mother. About proving that she was worthy. That she could be number one. Still, Evan wasn't helping. One late afternoon, they were the last two left in the library. Sienna had spread out her notes on a large table by the windows, deep into reviewing for their oral defense. Evan slid into the seat across from her without a word. She didn't look up. "What do you want?" she asked after a minute. "To study," he said innocently, setting down his laptop. "There are 12 other empty tables. And yet this one's the most interesting." She shot him a glare. "Do you ever get tired of being irritating?" He leaned forward slightly, resting his elbows on the table, eyes locking with hers. "Do you ever get tired of pretending I don't exist?" Her breath caught. Just a little. Barely noticeable. But he noticed. "I'm not pretending," she replied coolly. "I genuinely wish you didn't." He smirked. Harsh, but fair. They went silent after that, tension stretching between them like a rubber band pulled too tight. Outside, the sun dipped below the trees. Inside, the air thickened with something neither of them had a name for. She could feel his eyes on her. Not mocking this time. Not competitive. Just watching. And for one fleeting second, she wondered what it would feel like to let the competition go. To let him in. But the thought vanished as quickly as it came. The final quarter came fast, and it was brutal. Every exam, every paper, every performance task felt like a battlefield. Sienna didn't just want to win. She needed to. If she didn't graduate top of their senior high batch, she knew the disappointment in her mother's eyes would crush her. So she pushed harder than ever. Sleepless nights, coffee-stained notes, anxiety clenching her chest every time she saw Evan raise his hand in class. She hated that he made it look easy. Hated that he could tease her in the morning and still submit perfect work by lunch. When their final rankings were announced on graduation day, she held her breath so long she nearly passed out. Valedictorian, Sienna Matthews. Salutatorian, Evan Caldwell. Relief flooded her. And pride. But there was also something else. Something she didn't expect. Emptiness. Because when she turned to her mother and said, "Will you be the one to put the medal on me?" Lillian simply gave a polite smile and replied, "I have a business trip that day, sweetheart. I'm flying out tomorrow." And just like that, the gold medal in her hand felt hollow. No parade, no applause, just silence. After the ceremony, while the crowd thinned out and parents hugged their kids, Evan found her alone by the bleachers. "Hey," he said gently. "You did it." She nodded, too tired to speak. "I mean it," he said, stepping closer. "You deserve it." When she looked at him, really looked, there was no smugness on his face, just sincerity. "Thanks," she whispered. "I'll get you next time," he added with a grin. And for the first time, she didn't hate the sound of that. Part 3. Sienna thought college would be her fresh start, a place to finally own her achievements, without Evan Caldwell looming behind her like a shadow. She had graduated senior high school at the top of her class. She had the medal, the rank, the recognition. She thought maybe, just maybe, that would be enough for her mother to finally see her. But Lillian Matthews, had simply nodded and handed her a folder of university options, as if all of it, the stress, the sleepless nights, the award, meant nothing. So Sienna clung to her next goal: Latin honors. She would graduate summa cum laude. Her name would be carved on university plaques, published in newsletters, and announced on graduation day for everyone, especially her mother, to hear. It had to matter. And then, on her first day of orientation, she saw him, Evan Caldwell. Same confident stance, same infuriatingly smug smile, same damn major. "You have got to be kidding me," she muttered under her breath. "Missed me already?" he asked, adjusting the strap of his backpack. "I didn't miss you at all. I thought I escaped you." "Harsh," he said, grinning. "But I guess it wouldn't be fun without you." Sienna stared at him in disbelief. "Did you seriously choose the same university, same course, again, on purpose?" He shrugged. "Let's just say I believe in healthy competition." "This isn't healthy." "Speak for yourself. I'm thriving." She rolled her eyes and turned on her heel, vowing to ignore him. But her heart pounded, annoyed at how easily he still got under her skin. College life was faster, harder, and more brutal than anything she'd faced. And yet, Evan kept up with her. Worse, sometimes he led. He was sharper now, more focused. Gone was the playful boy who teased her in the library. Evan Caldwell in college was sharper-edged, more self-assured. He'd grown into his brilliance, and Sienna noticed it, even if she refused to say so out loud. Group projects were the worst. Professors often paired them together because you two clearly bring out the best in each other. Sienna wanted to scream every time someone said it. During one late-night report prep, they found themselves alone in a campus conference room. She sat stiffly behind her laptop typing bullet points. He was leaning back, long legs stretched out, watching her. "You're still wound up tight," he said eventually. "Maybe because you're not doing your part." "I already finished my section." "Well, good. Stay out of mine." He laughed softly. "You really hate me, don't you?" Sienna's hands paused over her keyboard. Her jaw tightened. "I don't hate you. Could have fooled me." "I hate that you follow me everywhere," she snapped. "That I can't have one goal without you stepping into the picture."
He sat up straighter, his voice lowered. "I didn't follow you, Sienna. I applied here because it's a great school. I picked this course because I want this career. I'm not here to ruin you." "You're not ruining me?" she said almost too quickly. Their eyes locked. The room suddenly felt too small. "I've never wanted to beat you," he said quietly. "Not really." She scoffed. "That's a lie." "No, what I really wanted," he exhaled and leaned back again, looking up at the ceiling like it would swallow the words. "I wanted you to see me." Her chest tightened. "And maybe one day, stop looking at me like I stole something from you." Sienna didn't have a response to that, not because she didn't want to answer, but because she wasn't sure if she even knew the truth anymore. By sophomore year, the rivalry between them had turned less bitter and far more electric. There were still late nights in the library, still fights over who contributed more in group tasks, still passive-aggressive compliments when grades were released, but there were also moments where his hand brushed hers during a presentation, moments where he looked at her too long and didn't bother to look away. Moments when she caught herself wondering what his lips would feel like against hers instead of imagining punching him in the throat. One Friday night, during a student leadership planning event, they found themselves walking home alone after everyone else called their rides. The street was quiet, cool wind rustling through the trees. Their footsteps echoed as they moved in silence, a comfortable kind this time. "I'm surprised you didn't take the lead on the whole event," Evan said after a while. "I don't need to lead everything." "Could have fooled me." She elbowed him lightly. He caught her wrist mid-motion, and the playful grin faded. His thumb brushed over her skin, slow, deliberate. "You still glare at me the same way you did back in 9th grade," he murmured. She swallowed hard. Old habits die hard. "I wonder what it'd take to change that look." Her breath hitched. Their eyes met under the streetlight. For the first time, neither of them looked away. His hand slid up her arm. And then, her phone buzzed, loud and jarring. She jerked back, the spell broke. "I should go," she said quickly. "Right," he said, backing away, stuffing his hands in his pockets. "See you Monday, Matthews." She turned and walked faster than she needed to, heart pounding, skin hot. She didn't sleep that night. She kept replaying the way he'd looked at her, the way her body had betrayed her, leaning in, aching for something she'd sworn she didn't want. But the truth was clearer now than ever. Their rivalry had stopped being about grades a long time ago. Whatever this was between her and Evan Caldwell, it was growing, and she had no idea how to stop it. Sienna Matthews had done everything right. She graduated magna cum laude, got herself a prestigious internship, proved to everyone, especially to her mother, that she could be both exceptional and indispensable. And still, Lillian Matthews barely blinked. The recognition, the sacrifices, the endless string of academic and professional achievements, none of it seemed to thaw her mother's cool, polished indifference. She was always proud of Avery, always remembered Blake with reverence. But Sienna? Sienna remained a shadow, a second-place memory, always reaching, never quite enough. Now at 24, she worked in the family's resort chain. As a manager, she oversaw operations, handled bookings, coordinated events. On paper, she had power, but in reality, she was still chasing scraps of affection. So when her mother's secretary resigned unexpectedly, Sienna volunteered to take on the role, in addition to her already demanding post. "You don't have to do this," Lillian had said, not even looking up from her tablet. "I want to," Sienna insisted. Lillian finally glanced at her. "You're a manager." "I can handle both." There was a long pause. Then with a stiff nod, Lillian replied, "Fine, just don't let it interfere with your real job." But Sienna wasn't doing it for the resume. She just wanted to be seen.
Part 4. It was at a formal dinner event hosted by their corporate investors when fate twisted the knife. Sienna was seated beside her mother, listening half-heartedly to business talk, when she heard a voice she hadn't heard in over a year. "I see you're still into sparkling water, Matthews." Her head snapped toward the sound. Evan Caldwell. He looked taller, sharper, broader across the shoulders in a black suit that made him look every inch the heir to a corporate empire. His hair was neater now, but his grin, God help her, was still exactly the same. "You've got to be kidding me," she muttered under her breath. He extended a hand to her mother. "Mrs. Matthews, pleasure to finally meet you." "Likewise," Lillian said, smiling coolly. "Victoria speaks very highly of you." "Of course." Their mothers were friends. Sienna's stomach dropped. Her gaze flicked between the two women, and the realization settled over her like ice. There was a connection here, something bigger than a dinner party. And she didn't like the look on her mother's face. That unreadable calm always meant one thing: she was up to something. Then came the bombshell. "We've been discussing something exciting," Victoria Caldwell said warmly as she joined the table. Sienna sat straighter. "It's an idea we've entertained for some time," her mother added. "What idea?" Sienna asked slowly, her tone already clipped. Lillian looked at her daughter with a kind of distant gentleness. "A union. Between you and Evan." Sienna froze. "I'm sorry, what?" "A marriage," Victoria clarified, as if this were some casual merger. "Strategic, of course. Our families complement each other. Our businesses align perfectly. With your marriage, we'd open up shared ventures, funding access, future expansions." "You can't be serious," Sienna said, voice trembling. "It's already being drawn up," Lillian said, tone final. Sienna stood. Her chair scraped against the polished floor. "Without even asking me?" Her mother's expression didn't change. "This is bigger than you, Sienna. Bigger than both of you." Evan had been silent through it all. Watching. Absorbing. Now finally, he spoke. Are you okay? She turned on him. You knew? No, he said firmly. I didn't. She didn't believe him, not entirely. But she also didn't have the energy to yell in front of everyone. Excusing herself, she walked out of the room and into the hallway, needing air, needing space. Moments later, Evan followed. You should have said no, she snapped before he could speak. I just found out tonight, he replied, hands raised in surrender. Then why aren't you objecting to this madness? I didn't say I agreed to it. But you're not fighting it either. Evan stepped closer. Look, I'm not thrilled about being traded like a stock option either. But maybe it wouldn't be the worst thing. She stared at him like he'd grown two heads. You want to marry me? His jaw flexed. I'm saying I would not mind marrying you? Sienna scoffed. You've officially lost your mind. Have I? He challenged. We've been circling each other for years, Sienna. Battling, competing, clashing. Maybe it's not as crazy as it sounds. She laughed, cold, disbelieving. You don't love me. Evan's gaze didn't waver. I've seen you, Sienna. More than anyone in your life ever has. Doesn't that count for something? That stopped her. Her chest ached. Because part of her knew. He was right. He had seen her. Always. Even when her own mother didn't. But love? She couldn't believe in that. Not yet. Maybe not ever. All she knew was this, she couldn't say no. Because Lillian had never needed her before. And now she was the key to saving the resort's expansion. And for once, Sienna wanted to be needed. Even if it meant sacrificing herself for it. Part 5. The wedding was beautiful, but lifeless. It was held in a luxurious garden hall full of fresh peonies, champagne flutes, and polished smiles. To the outside world, it was the perfect union of two powerful families. The press called it a strategic alliance. Investors called it brilliant. Sienna Matthews called it a goddamn transaction. She stood beside Evan Caldwell in a fitted white dress, her hand resting on his arm, her expression practiced and unreadable. He looked devastatingly handsome in his tux, his touch light, his jaw tight. Not from nerves, no. From restraint? They both smiled for the cameras. They both signed the marriage license. They both said I do like it meant nothing. And then it was done. The drive to their shared penthouse was quiet. Too quiet? Sienna stared out the window, arms crossed, the weight of the diamond band on her finger feeling heavier with every mile. When they reached the elevator, Evan was the one to speak first. I won't make you do anything you don't want to do? She glanced at him sharply. Good, because nothing about this was my choice. He nodded. Understood. Still, the way he looked at her, calm, controlled, but intensely present, unnerved her. It was easier when he was just her rival, someone to beat. But now, he was her husband. And worse, he was everywhere. Living with Evan was torture. Not because he was rude. He wasn't. He was actually frustratingly considerate. He made coffee in the mornings, folded his laundry, gave her space. But it was his presence, constant, quiet, and male, that messed with her. The way he walked around in low-slung sweats after a shower, water droplets sliding down his chest. The way his voice dropped when he was half asleep, low and rough, muttering her name when asking about breakfast. The way his cologne clung to the hallway outside the bathroom. He wasn't just in her space. He was under her skin. And the worst part? He didn't touch her. Not once. As if he was waiting. It was 2 weeks into their marriage when the inevitable snapped. She was working late in the home office, shoulders stiff, fingers aching from typing. Evan walked in, fresh from a late shower, damp hair, a glass of whiskey in one hand. Still at it? He asked. She didn't answer. You don't have to keep proving anything to her, you know? Sienna froze. Evan stepped closer, placing the whiskey glass on the edge of her desk. She'll never give you what you want. Not fully. You know that? Go to hell, she snapped, standing abruptly. He didn't flinch. Why do you think I'm still trying? Her voice cracked. Because if I stop, then what am I? Just a mistake that survived while my brother died? Evan stared at her. You're not a mistake. Then what am I? You're mine. The words hit her like a whip. Her chest rose and fell. Don't say that. He stepped into her space. You're my wife? It's fake. It doesn't feel fake. And then, finally, he touched her. His hand slipped around her waist, pulling her forward. Her breath caught, but she didn't pull away. His other hand cupped her cheek, eyes searching hers. Tell me to stop. She couldn't. He kissed her. And every buried feeling, every hidden stare, every repressed heartbeat exploded. She kissed him back like she hated him, bit his lip like he ruined her, clawed at his shirt like she needed to burn this down with him. He lifted her onto the desk without asking. She wrapped her legs around his hips without thinking. The moment his hand slid beneath her thighs and lifted her onto the desk, the last thread of self-control snapped. Papers scattered like leaves in a storm. Pens clattered to the floor. Somewhere behind her, a framed photo toppled and hit the rug. She didn't care. His mouth was everywhere, her throat, her jaw, the curve of her ear. His breath was hot and uneven, laced with words that broke the silence between them. You drive me insane, he rasped, lips dragging down her neck, teeth grazing her collarbone. Good, she whispered, her fingers already tugging at his shirt, yanking it from his waistband. Then we're even. His laugh was low, breathless, laced with want. He kissed her hard, mouth crashing against hers in a way that made her gasp. It wasn't sweet. It wasn't slow. It was years of frustration, of tension, of fights that always meant more than either of them admitted. She moaned when his hands cupped her ass, pulling her forward against the thick line of his arousal pressing through his pants. She could feel how hard he was, how much he wanted her, and it sent a wave of slick heat rushing between her thighs. He groaned when her hips rolled against him, grinding deliberately. Fuck, Sienna. Her name on his lips was everything. Rough and reverent, and hungry. She tugged his belt open, fingers moving quickly, desperately, as he dragged her blouse up over her head and flung it to the side. His hands found her bare skin, her ribs, the swell of her breasts. His mouth followed, tasting her like he'd waited his whole life for this. Look at me, he said roughly, one hand cupping the side of her face, thumb brushing over her lower lip. You've always acted like I wasn't real. Like I was just some obstacle to beat. But I've always been here. I see you now, she whispered back, her voice trembling with need. Then let me have you, he murmured. All of you, she nodded. And that was all the permission he needed. His hand slipped beneath her skirt, pulling her panties down in one fluid motion. The cool air against her skin made her gasp. He knelt slightly, kissing up the inside of her thigh, deliberately avoiding the place she needed him most. Evan, she breathed, fingers sliding into his hair, tugging. His smirk was sinful. Then his mouth was there, hot, slow, devastating. She gasped, her head falling back, thighs shaking around his shoulders. His tongue moved in lazy, torturous strokes, teasing her with maddening precision. When he finally pulled back, she was panting, undone, trembling. Please, she said hoarsely. He stood, kissed her again, this time slower, deeper, claiming her mouth as thoroughly as he had her body. Then he freed himself from his pants, hard and thick in his hand. She barely had time to think before he was pressing against her entrance, tip slick and hot, teasing just at the edge. And then he pushed in. Not carefully, not slowly. It was a sharp, deep thrust that knocked the air from her lungs. She cried out, half pleasure, half shock, her fingers clawing at his back as he filled her completely. Jesus, you feel like heaven, he groaned into her neck, holding her there, buried to the hilt. So fucking tight. She could barely think, could barely breathe. But her hips moved anyway, instinctively, desperately, urging him deeper. He began to move, slow at first, dragging every inch of himself out before slamming back in. She clung to him, legs locked around his waist, heels pressing into his back, matching his rhythm with her own wild need. Every thrust was like a declaration. Every stroke, a breaking down of the wall she'd built around herself for years. He wasn't gentle, but he was careful in the ways that mattered. Watching her, listening to the way she gasped his name, the way her body arched into him, the way her hands clutched him tighter every time he hit that perfect spot inside her. Their breaths tangled. Her skin burned. The tension snapped into something deeper, something blinding. Sienna, he choked out, his rhythm faltering. Come for me. I want to feel you lose it. That was all it took. She shattered around him, back arched, a cry ripped from her throat as pleasure pulsed through every nerve in her body. Her walls clenched around him, and with a groan that sounded like a prayer, Evan followed, thrusting hard and deep before spilling inside her, body trembling with release. For a long moment, they stayed tangled together, foreheads pressed, chests heaving, skin slick with sweat and need. Then Evan kissed her again, softer this time. Slower. Less about claiming, more about keeping. Epilogue. The screech of tires, a flash of headlights, the shattering crunch of metal and glass. Then, nothing. The world went black. Sienna woke to the beeping of machines and the sharp sting of antiseptic in her nose. Her body ached, her head throbbed, and when she tried to sit up, pain radiated down her spine. She blinked slowly, trying to make sense of the haze, until a familiar figure shot up from a nearby chair, rushing to her side. "Sienna," Evan breathed, voice shaking, eyes bloodshot. "God, you're awake." She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Only air. He gripped her hand tightly, dropping his head against it. "You scared the hell out of me." The accident came back to her in fragments. Rainy road, a delivery truck, her trying to avoid it, the impact. She'd been driving home after picking up documents for her mother's newest resort expansion. Her last thought before everything went dark was whether Lillian would be proud of her for making it to that meeting. It was ironic, really. Sienna had spent her entire life nearly destroying herself for recognition. And now she was lying in a hospital bed because of it. "Is the baby?" she rasped, the words catching in her throat. Evan immediately nodded, eyes glossy with relief. "The baby's fine. You're both okay. The doctor said you were lucky." Lucky? She didn't feel lucky. She felt exhausted, empty, fragile. And then she saw the door open. And there, standing stiffly with her handbag clutched to her chest, was Lillian Matthews. Sienna's breath hitched. Her mother looked smaller somehow, out of place in the sterile white room. Her perfect lipstick was faded, her blazer wrinkled, but it was her eyes that stunned Sienna the most. They were wet, and they were looking at her. "Mom?" she croaked. Lillian stepped forward slowly, like she wasn't sure she'd be welcome. "You're awake," she said softly. Sienna nodded. A painful silence stretched between them. Then Lillian did something that shattered the walls Sienna had been building for years. She cried. "I'm so sorry," she whispered, tears falling freely. "For everything. For how I treated you. For what I didn't say. For making you feel like you had to keep proving yourself to me." Sienna stared, frozen. "I lost Blake," Lillian said, voice trembling, "and I couldn't face the pain. I blamed the world. I blamed fate. And I think part of me blamed you because it was easier than blaming myself." "Mom?" Sienna's throat tightened. "I just wanted you to see me again." "I see you now," Lillian said through tears. "And I'm so proud of the woman you are. Not because of your grades. Not because of the business. Because you survived. Because you kept loving me even when I didn't deserve it." Sienna broke. She sobbed and her mother moved forward, embracing her carefully, gently, like she was trying to make up for every lost year in one long, quiet hug. And for the first time in over a decade, Sienna finally felt the warmth she had craved for so long. It wasn't perfect. It didn't erase the past, but it was real. Evan stood silently nearby, watching them with glassy eyes, his hand protectively resting on Sienna's belly. 3 months later, Sienna stood barefoot on the balcony of their penthouse, one hand resting on her baby bump, the other curled around a mug of warm milk. The sky was a deep, early pink. Evan stepped behind her, shirtless, warm, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "You okay?" he murmured, kissing her shoulder. "Yeah," she whispered. "More than okay?" He looked down at her belly. I still can't believe there's a little human in there. Well, she smirked, that's what happens when you take your husband duties a little too seriously. He laughed and nuzzled her neck. If we keep this up, we'll have a whole basketball team. Let's just focus on surviving the first one, Caldwell. He turned her around and pressed a soft kiss to her lips. No matter what happens, I've got you. Sienna looked up at him, the boy who used to steal her top spot, the rival who turned into her partner, the man who never stopped seeing her even when she couldn't see herself, and felt her heart swell. I know, she said. And she did. At the baby shower a few weeks later, Lillian gave a speech. It wasn't long, but it was the first time Sienna had ever heard her mother's voice shake for all the right reasons. She's strong, Lillian said to their guests. Not because she was my daughter, but because she became the woman I never had the courage to be. Sienna wiped her eyes and looked across the room at Evan, who gave her that slow, proud smile that always turned her insides to melted sugar. This was the recognition she had longed for. Not from the world, not even from her mother, but from the people who saw her clearly and loved her anyway. Months later, in a delivery room filled with screaming and sweat and overwhelming joy, Sienna Matthews Caldwell held her baby girl for the first time. Her daughter's cries were tiny, her fingers delicate, but her presence, her existence, felt like the universe shifting into place. I think she looks like you, Evan whispered beside her, kissing her temple. I think she has your stubborn streak, Sienna replied, tears spilling freely. She looked down at her daughter, Emma Blake Caldwell, named for the brother who once gave his life to protect her and for the life they would now give this little girl. And in that moment, surrounded by love, warmth, and a future filled with second chances, Sienna finally understood. She had never needed to be the best to be loved. She just needed to be herself. The end. Thanks for listening. And again, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button and hit like if you like the story. See you in my next audio story. More power!